When I decided to create a video about what to pack in a travel first aid kit, I thought it was going to be a pretty simple process. But when I polled this community and asked what your travel first aid kit essentials were, I got a wide range of answers that included some items that I honestly hadn't considered packing before, but I might now. Let's do this. In preparing to create this video, I watched some other videos about travel first aid kits. And these people must have been going into space or something. I mean, they had stuff to handle every possible scenario you could encounter on any given corner of the Earth. Emergency blankets, multiple sizes of gauze pads, tourniquets, medical doohickeys, like all kinds of stuff. Things to make you poop, things to make you not poop, just everything. Their lists went on, which leads me to tip number 1, and honestly what I think is one of the most important overall travel tips, which is to bring what you need for your trip depending on what you're doing and where you're going. If you're going into the jungle, you'll want mosquito repellent and bite cream for sure. If you're planning on doing backcountry hikes or adventure activities, then by all means pack that moleskin and a tensor bandage for possible sprained ankles. By anticipating your needs and curating your first aid kit specific to the trip that you're taking, you'll save valuable packing space and weight. And let's get it right, if you forget something, it's probably not the end of the world. In most cases, you can get what you need abroad. People get headaches, stomach aches, cuts, bites, and bruises around the world. So your travel first aid kit is just supposed to get you through until you can get to a pharmacy. That said, if your trip is taking you to a place where there is no pharmacy, well, then it's a balancing act between anticipating your possible first aid needs and maximizing space. Most pre-made travel first aid kits that you can buy in a store or online take up a lot of space and they aren't super carry-on friendly. It's one thing to throw it in there if you're checking luggage and you have space, but if you're packing light, it's a whole other kettle of fish. This leads me to my latest travel experiment. My partner and I are going on a 2.5-week trip where we're each taking only one bag. We'll be going through some pretty cool climates, so we need layers, and we will do everything from eating at nice restaurants in cities to trail running in the woods and more. We will, of course, bring along a travel first aid kit specific to this trip, which I will share with you in a minute. This also means we will need to pack extra light in the clothing department. So, we are each taking a travel capsule wardrobe with 100% unbound merino clothes. I've been wearing unbound merino clothing for a while now, and if you've watched my videos for long, you'll know that I love what they have. So much so that I personally bought an entire travel capsule wardrobe for my partner to travel with, so he can also experience what it's like to travel with merino wool clothing. And he can be a bit of a hard sell, so stay tuned to future videos to see how or if he likes his new duds. This is literally everything my partner is packing for the trip, for example, including the outfit that he will wear on travel days. Merino wool has the superpower of saving space in your luggage by helping you pack way less. This is possible for 3 reasons. 1, merino wool is antimicrobial and antibacterial, which means you can wear it exponentially longer without washing it, and it won't smell. Even if it does smell at the end of the day, just hang it up to let it air out, and you're good to go by morning. 2, merino wool dries quickly, so when you do need to wash it, you can hand wash in cool water in the sink, get the moisture out by rolling it in a towel, and it will air dry overnight. 3, unbound merino makes timeless classic styles that are versatile enough that you can look great in many, if not most, scenarios. I'll talk a bit more about our travel capsule wardrobe experiment in a future video. In the meantime, if you want to learn more about merino wool and why it's amazing for travel, I will leave a link in the description and also in the first comment to a video that will answer all of your questions. There's also a special link in there so you can check out Unbound Merino for yourself. And if you use the special code NORA10, you'll get 10% off. Happy travels, and thank you Unbound Merino for sponsoring this video. And now a couple of tips and hacks for carrying your travel first aid kit. First of all, any items that are liquids will need to be separated and put into your liquids bag if you're flying with carry-on only. Although, I will admit I have pretty consistently forgotten to do this, and I've yet to get stopped for my antibiotic cream or my nasal spray. I am not recommending that you follow in my footsteps. It's good practice to have liquids separate. For more information on this, check out my video with tips and tricks for flying with liquids while traveling with carry-on luggage only. As for the first aid kit itself, I tend to carry mine in a Ziploc bag. That way I can easily see what's in it, and so can anybody else, like a travel partner if they need some first aid for themselves or for me. In terms of quantity of items, remember, you only need enough to tide you over until you can get to a pharmacy. So don't try to pack enough for your entire trip, unless that is, you know that there's no over-the-counter alternative at your destination. That's another matter, and it is worth researching. More on that in a minute. For over-the-counter pills and tablets, there are two ways to carry them. One is in blister packs. They're easy to carry in this bag, and it's easy to find what you need since most blister packs have the drug name written on it. If it's not written on the pack, then you can do so with a permanent marker. And you probably don't need an entire blister pack of something, depending on your needs and dosages. For example, these are my migraine meds, which are precautionary, but when a migraine hits, I need something immediately to catch it. This is a perfect travel first aid kit essential for me, and on my upcoming trip, I will cut one of these blister packs in half. But blister packs aren't always the greatest use of space. Or perhaps the over-the-counter pills that you have come in a bottle, and you don't want to bring an entire bottle on your trip. In these cases, I use little containers like these. In fact, inside this very container, I have ibuprofen liquid gels as well as antihistamine tablets for allergies. Now, if you're saying, but Nora, they're not in their original packaging, you would be right. But in many, if not most cases, pills have numbers stamped on them that identify what they are. This can help you if you forgot what you brought, or if you find your first aid kit being inspected by a customs agent. Now, I get a lot of questions about having meds inspected by customs agents or TSA officers. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but it hasn't ever happened to me or anybody I know. So I just don't worry about it. But if you're worried, then either just bring what you need in blister packs, or just wait until you arrive to your destination and buy it there. This does bring up one very important matter though, and it's that some of the over-the-counter meds and supplements may not be legal abroad. When I researched this, Benadryl and protein powder came up as examples of things that are illegal in certain countries, but I couldn't figure out which countries. So if you want to be sure that your travel first aid kit is totally compliant, then check the embassy website for the country that you're visiting to ensure that what you want to bring in is legally allowed, including your prescriptions, over-the-counter medication, and supplements. One more cool first aid carrying hack. I don't personally carry tape, like bandage tape, but if I did, I would wrap it around something like a pencil or even a water bottle. This means I'll save the space and weight of bringing the entire roll, and I'll have what I need ready when I need it. Okay, let's get cooking. Here is what I generally take in my first aid kit. I'll follow that up with some items that some of you in this community said you like to bring that I might actually follow suit with and start carrying myself. And then I'll list a few items that some people bring, but that I'm just not sold on from a travel perspective. I will finish off with a special bonus tip that isn't a first aid kit item per se, but it could save you in a medical emergency. And of course, before we go any further, I may be stating the obvious, but I will say it anyway. I'm not a doctor. So before you start taking any kind of medication or supplement, please make sure it's okay for you and that there aren't any contraindications with what you might already be taking. Also, you'll see here I'm not discussing prescription medication. These are just simple travel first aid items for common accidents and ailments abroad. First up, a painkiller. I like ibuprofen, which is also known as Advil, because it can help with fevers and pains, and as an anti-inflammatory, it can be used for muscle problems, menstrual cramps, and even the swelling of skin when you get a bad sunburn. An alternative to ibuprofen that helps with pain and fevers is acetaminophen, which is sold as Tylenol, and it's also called paracetamol abroad. Next, I always have an antihistamine for allergies. I mostly have them on hand in case I'm staying somewhere with cats or dogs, although I've also been known to take them when I've had really bad reactions to bug bites or gotten some kind of hives or heat rash. Speaking of septic-looking bug bites, antibiotic cream tends to come with me as well, especially if I'm going somewhere humid and buggy. I was on the Trans-Siberian train with a friend many years ago, and I had some bug bites that were becoming infected while we were on the train. My friend came to the rescue with her antibiotic cream, and my bites were healed by the time I got off the train a few days later. Now, I rarely, if ever, need antibiotic cream, so to be honest, if I'm traveling ultralight and I'm going somewhere with easy access to pharmacies, this is probably one of the first things to be cut from my list of first aid essentials. Electrolytes, however, always come with me. I like to take electrolytes after big workouts and also after long flights, both of which can be dehydrating. From a first aid perspective, though, they are essential if I've been sick, with diarrhea, vomiting, etc. It helps with maintaining hydration and ultimately recovering. I've had illnesses where I couldn't keep anything down, in some cases for days at a time. So if that happens, I just sip electrolytes to get whatever impactful hydration that I can get. I've also become a fan of nasal decongestant sprays. I used to use them before I flew, every time I flew, to reduce the terrible ear pain that I would have when the plane descends. I have since been introduced to earplanes thanks to a suggestion from one of you, so thank you so much for that. These are lifesavers. But I do still have nasal decongestant in case I'm a bit congested before flying, because it can be dangerous to fly with sinus challenges. And also in case I get sick or I have bad allergies and I need a good night of sleep. I also like to have eye drops on hand, as well as some tiger balm or salve that can be used for bites, itches, and minor aches and pains. And of course, no first aid kit would be complete without a few different sizes of self-adhesive bandages. Now, this is a very bare bones first aid kit for travel, based on bare necessities and not going too far off any beaten tracks, such that I can get what I need at a pharmacy wherever I am, whenever I need it. But when I asked you in a community post here on my channel what you bring in your first aid kits, I got a lot of the above, but also quite a few other items that I will seriously consider bringing now. Band-aids, antibiotic cream, and painkillers were all tops on the list. We're all in agreement here. But then, what's this? Diarrhea relief. I actually can't believe it never occurred to me to bring diarrhea meds. And they're the kind of thing that can be very handy if you get the proverbial deli belly and you don't want to leave your room. Even a couple of pills can get you enough relief to get you to a pharmacy where you can get some more. It's a good call. The next overwhelmingly popular suggestion from you was some kind of disinfecting wipes or alcohol wipes, presumably to clean wounds. I think they're handy, pardon the pun, but I also think that you can use water to clean a wound, at least initially, and you can use the antibiotic ointment to prevent infection. That said, disinfecting wipes don't generally take up much space, and they're multifunctional. So, on that basis, I like it. Anti-nausea medication is another good one. If I'm going on a boat or cruise, I will bring Gravol or something similar for sure. But I don't always have it with me. And I have been caught out getting nauseous on a long bus or car ride. It's also great if your tummy is upset and you've got a tour or some pre-planned activity to get on with. Also, most of you carry some kind of antacid or anti-gas stuff, like Tums or Pepto-Bismol. I probably suffer in this department more than I need to, but I also don't consider it a must-have, such that I couldn't go out to a store and get some if I needed it. Again, everything is a choice and a balancing act between having what we might need and saving luggage space and weight. The same goes for large bandages and wound pads and tape that many of you carry. Unless I'm going on a big hike or some serious off-grid adventure, I don't have these things. However, I might consider getting some blister pads or moleskin, which I think is a great suggestion since walking is generally a prime travel pastime, and a painful blister can get in the way of that. Also, a lot of you travel with safety pins. Now, I think a safety pin is a great idea in general, but I'm not sure exactly how it's considered a first aid kit item specifically. So, if you're on Team Safety Pin, can you please leave a comment and tell me how you use it when you travel? I'd love to know. Oh, and while you're down there, can you please like this video? It does help me out. Thank you. I've already mentioned that I don't think large gauze pads and medical tape and such for treating large wounds is necessary. But it depends on what you're doing and what the chances are that you'll find yourself with a large wound and no way to treat it. The same goes for burn pads. I've never used one in my life, but a friend of mine who likes taking long motorcycle trips says they're great. Similarly, I think an emergency blanket is a great idea for a backcountry skiing or big hiking trip, but not as a general first aid kit item. And you might say, what about sunscreen or insect repellent? Perhaps it's conjecture, but I don't consider these first aid kit items. I consider them preventative and more in the toiletry category than first aid. Regardless, these are items that I can either bring, or if I'm traveling light, I'll buy it at my destination, which is easy if I'm in a particularly sunny or buggy place. Here's something that's not a first aid kit item, but part of a first aid regime, and it's important when traveling and at home. Have you set up your emergency ID information on your phone? This is something that can be accessed by anybody who has your phone. For example, maybe a paramedic needs some information and you aren't conscious or coherent. It contains whatever specific health information you want to include, but obviously examples are your name, your age, any special instructions, including medicine allergies, and your emergency contact person's name and number. I obviously don't recommend putting too much information in there, but a medical professional knowing about my penicillin allergy could save my life. Speaking of medical emergencies, you do have travel insurance, right? I've had to make insurance claims a few times, and I am so glad that I had it. But there is a lot that can go wrong with travel insurance claims. This video will help you avoid the classic mistakes that could leave you high and dry. I'm Nora Dunn, aka the Professional Hobo, and I'll catch you next time.